After achieving a relative level of local and internet fame, House of Balloons marks The Weeknd's official entry into the music industry as his first mixtape release. Nowadays, it's the first of 3 projects that make up the Trilogy Collection, a staple in The Weeknd's catalogue that fans still adore today, and that defined his early sound and illustrated a lifestyle that's evolved with his career but still serves as an important foundation. In this video, we'll go through the project track by track to tell the story of House of Balloons by identifying themes, analysing lyrics, and generally breaking down the tape to appreciate its depth, darkness, and greatness. Without further ado, let's enter the House of Balloons. We're introduced with the dark and eerie opening of Hi For This, which sets the tone for what's to come. While this could be the project itself, I think of it as more of an introduction to Abel Tesfaye, the person and his lifestyle, and also The Weeknd, the artist and his sound. Immediately we're invited into a party atmosphere. Get used to it, we'll be here a lot. In fact, Hi For This really sets the project off perfectly by introducing several key themes and motifs. On the surface level, partying, drugs, sex, and lust. In the first verse, Abel's convincing this woman to do drugs for the first time, but she isn't sure what to expect. If we were to view this track as both an introduction to this lifestyle and The Weeknd as an artist, I think the woman in question could reflect a prospective fan hearing his music for the first time. It might sound strange, eerie, and a little scary, leaving you with a sense of uncertainty, but he wants you to be relaxed and open-minded as you prepare for this journey. Hold tight and brace yourself for this ride as you enter his dark, drug-filled world of ecstasy and highs. This metaphor extends into the chorus and second verse as the woman starts having some doubts and fears as she second guesses what she's doing, only for Abel to assure her that it's worth experiencing, calming her down and promising that they'll have a great time. Just like skeptical fans who are thinking maybe this isn't for them, only to become addicted. Sampling Aaliyah's Rock the Boat, but with The Weeknd's dark and ominous influence, What You Need continues as we mean to go on, but with a greater sense of seduction and hallucination that lulls us into a hypnotic trance. The track plays with the duality of this woman having a physical dependency on the drugs on offer at the party, but also an emotional dependency for The Weeknd himself. The drugs and lifestyle are seducing her, but so is Abel. This is best showcased through his repetition of the chorus, to a similar effect of his After Hours track, Repeat After Me. Specifically in the first verse, Abel, possibly under the effects of ecstasy, is driven by lust and sexual desire as his real relationship status loses meaning to him. From here, he claims to be a superior lover who can offer highs nobody else can match, likely from both the drugs he has access to, but also his ability to make you climax. And this is a common trend we'll see. Abel doesn't consider himself just another person, but despite this, he has his own problems and insecurities that leave him struggling to find genuine connection. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In the pre-chorus, the withdrawals and need for drugs and sex are clear as she gets closer to Abel. She fiends for him, as she does for drugs. Here we see another important motif linking sexual desire to drug addiction, where love and sex become as insanely addictive as the drugs they're taking. But the true addiction running through her veins is Abel himself. We hear through the chorus that the woman craves attention from her boyfriend, but can't get it. She wants her boyfriend, but needs love and attention. Abel is willing to step in to provide that. And so Abel gives her everything she wants and craves at the cost of making her a cheater and an addict. 2 things she never thought she'd be. Immediately, the vibe switches from the eerie and seductive to the upbeat and lively. This stark contrast amidst feelings of a house party and strobe lights flashing as the night passes and drugs take over. This first half samples Susie and the Banshees' Happy House, which we hear him echo throughout the song, which clearly refers to the namesake of the mixtape and song. In an interview with Rolling Stone, Abel reveals that these stories are based on the shitty parties he and his friends would throw and that they would set up balloons to make it seem celebratory. Hence, House of Balloons. The Happy House. But there's a lot more going on at these parties than that. Moving on to the first verse, Abel once again presents 2 situations. One where the drugs have taken him to another level, taking away the pain and changing who he is when under the influence. The other aspect is a little more kinky and of a dominant sexual relationship where you're in his world and belong to him. In the haunting chorus, Abel desperately attempts to convince everyone, the partygoers himself and us, the listeners, that this is a happy house. Everyone's happy and having fun. Despite this insistence, Abel's date is having trouble breathing, possibly due to the effects of the drug she's on or the smoke in the air, and as a result, She wants to leave. Her mind wanting to leave could refer to a bad trip or the effects of paranoia, anxiety, and hyperventilation. But he commands her that she can't go, or perhaps can't escape these feelings once she's taken the drugs. This hook could be a metaphor for anxiety and depression as a whole. Hyperventilation is an effect of panic attacks, and a common element of depression is putting up a facade saying that everything is fine. In fact, Abel's reassurance that everything is fine might be him doing exactly that. He doesn't really like the man he's become and the lifestyle he lives. Not to psychoanalyze, but that's kind of what we do here, his tendency to use sex and drugs to hide his problems could be a coping mechanism for him and a front in telling everyone that he's fine in his happy house. In verse 2, the drug-induced night of partying takes away the sense of time as night flies by. Abel, once again, paints himself as the provider, the plug for a good time. This girl wanted a good time and he thought she got it, although he denies responsibility or blame because to him, it was all her idea that he actualized. Ultimately, she didn't know what she was getting into, that drugs were going to be her fun, or how controlling Abel was going to be in this position. The second part of the song hones in on the drug activity at these parties. As the mood shifts, uneasy tension rises. Despite the dramatically darker sound, he sings about his favorite things: having sex and doing drugs. The 707 he references means a couple of things. There's a glass table made by Boeing that partygoers would do lines of cocaine on, fitting with the title. There's also the Roland TR-707 drum machine that was used to produce the track and is heavily present in this part of the song. And finally, there's also the chemical name for some surface and glass cleaners needed to wipe down the tables when the party was over. As mentioned earlier, drugs can take away the sense of time, so his solution was to read the skies. But the main takeaway partygoers needed to know was that when the stars came out and it got dark, it was time to return to the House of Balloons. After the chaos of the previous tracks, the morning provides a refreshing respite that leaves images of sun rays beaming through the blinds of a new day, the morning after a long night and a big party. This particular morning picks up from the last song, which was riddled with drug use that crippled any sense of time and has lingering effects on Abel's morning as he sobers through the song. Despite the nightlife paradise and happy house that the House of Balloons has been portrayed as so far, the house gets noise complaints all day, to the point where the party never seems to stop for Abel. This could be the drugs in his system talking, but it goes against his understanding of what the morning brings. Typically, when the sun rises, the effects of his highs begin to wear off before the sun goes down again and the cycle continues. This same idea applies to the partygoers who are almost like vampires. The opening of the House of Balloons welcomes them in the night, and when the morning comes, they vanish back into their regular lives. Although, not for Abel, or at least, not this morning. This irregularity continues in the first verse as it lacks structure and cohesiveness as he bounces from one idea to another without rationality. At one moment, he talks about the strippers and prostitutes that work for money, which is echoed in the chorus, and an interesting point to follow later on, although straight after that we hear the iconic "Cali is the mission" bar. California and LA are important milestones in Abel's career that at this point in his life, he used to measure his success. He also said that he was visiting every month, although apparently he hadn't left Canada until after this came out, strengthening its symbol as an ambitious goal. Regardless, I like the idea he presents here of split life living, which is essentially living two lives in secret. A life of fame as he and his House of Balloons had reached a level of infamy in Toronto with his rising popularity, and an average life he could find by blending in LA as a nobody, where his sorts of nights are as common as they come. As we continue going through this verse in no structure at all, he brings up codeine, cups, fakes, and rigid poles. Red styrofoam cups are a party staple, and at the House of Balloons, a pinkish purple drink could often be seen inside of it. Not only is this an easy thing to imagine, but codeine is a painkiller that when mixed with alcohol intensifies highs and intoxication. At higher dosages, they can slow your heart and perhaps hone some other senses, making your surroundings stand out vividly at the time. I think he's also saying that he can point out fakes that try to copy his lifestyle or pretend to. Also, some of the girls at these parties are standoffish and scared to dive into actually doing these drugs, but these same girls have no problem getting on some poles for money, as we make it to the chorus. From this point forward, the song gains more direction and sense as he hones in on two major themes of the tape: his aspiring career and love in a loveless place. First, he gets introspective about his career. And stay with me, but I think he's comparing himself to the strippers and prostitutes who grind so hard for money, their motive, and therefore find success, and I think he aspires to do the same. He wants to make it in the music industry and needs to give everything that he's got, and money is most definitely a motive to keep him working hard. especially given his upbringing. Getting into the next verse, I think he's also making parallels to his virgin-like status in the industry. He hasn't had money or fame before, and he isn't going to let it pass him by. He pushes through the resistance of rejection and the struggle he's faced, but also finds pleasure in the work he's doing, or at least believes that he will eventually when he pushes through that barrier. He then talks about his climb to the top, which has two interesting meanings to me. From one perspective, there's fear in what he's going to do if he experiences success, only to fail, and how that might spiral him out of control. At the same time, there's incredible motivation to never be comfortable at the top. The higher he climbs in the industry, the more he wants to raise the quality and quantity of his releases, or in other words, the harder he wants to drop. This leads to the indignation of nameless artists in the industry who cling to past successes to retain relevance and status. Now, I did say he was talking about love in a loveless place. We see that in the very last verse. He's talking about a stripper or prostitute, and I want to draw attention to her love being too damn foreign. Her concept of love is hard to comprehend and different from most definitions. Her love isn't for any man or woman, it's for money. And it's foreign because only those in her position would understand. She's also not used to receiving real love. She gets it in the rawest form of lust from men who just want to have sex, and that corrupts her idea of love. If we continue with the idea of Abel actively comparing these women to himself, Abel's love is too damn foreign for the girls in his life. It's been a theme so far and grows in significance as we progress in the project. Abel wants real love, but all the girls he gets with seem to have 20 different pills in them and are driven by lust and addiction. They love drugs, attention, and fame, and nothing else. Being only one of 2 music videos released on House of Balloons, it's a good opportunity to use visual storytelling in combination with the lyrics and sonic production. So let's do exactly that with Wicked Games. Immediately we're met with a dark and seductive beat that accompanies the thematic black and white visuals of the mixtape and a cabaret or strip club performance. The muddied beat and dirty bass add to the dankness of the setting, making it seem intimate and derelict, but like a one-on-one show between Abel and this woman. While Abel has reached his emotional limits in his actual relationship, he finds himself in a strip club and in a moment of lustful indulgence, searches for connection and discovers it in the shape of this dancer. While he looks uninterested, grief-stricken, and maybe a little high in the music video, his words suggest a willingness and desperation to move things forward. It's a complicated situation where he's emotionally distraught, but desperate for connection. In this lifeless-like state, he stands there singing his heart out as her shadows claw at him. Her shadow doing this is interesting to me. Shadows typically symbolize the darker side of human nature, perfectly aligning with his lust and disloyalty, and the wicked game he's playing with the stripper. In this setting, the stripper doesn't know Abel, but it's her job to make him want her and give her everything he has to get her. It's a transaction, and a relationship built on taboo desire. A one-sided relationship at that, and one that is likely bound to fail in any long-term event. As the song progresses, her seductive power gains more and more control as he's rendered powerless and hypnotized under her spell. Complete control is taken at the beginning of the chorus, where her shadows overtake him and encase him in darkness. In this state, there's a clear shift in personality and mood as he becomes much more energetic and engaged. In the darkness, he's shameless, and makes it openly known what he would give to have her for the night. We've seen this before from Abel, using his access to and promise of highs and drugs to purchase affection. His pursuit of quick fixes is another wicked game he plays, and keeps him in an endless cycle of unfulfillment and poor choices. But it gives him confidence in his life of hedonic happiness. Yet again, there's another stark switch up in the tone as the party starts light and happy compared to Wicked Games. Although the production elements like the bass disrupt any feelings of complete bliss and sanity for too long, distorting reality for mere moments, tearing away the good girl, good guy guys, revealing their darker base desires built on nothing more than addiction and lust. This kicks off at another party, as we've come to expect, with Abel and a girl he's met getting a little freaky on the couch. Things start to escalate, and they want to have a party of their own, but will need more privacy, so they move upstairs to a spare room. Before we get there though, there's a clear theme in the verse about her wants and needs. He knows them, he knows what she's thinking, and he can supply her with it. Once again, this continues in true House of Balloons fashion. There are 2 things he's supplying: drugs and dick, living up to his role as the supplier of a good time. So he races her upstairs, they find a room, and Act 2 begins. In a way, the first half, the party, is foreplay, flirty and teasing that builds up to the rest of the night and the ecstasy they plan to feel by the end of it. The after party is the next part where they really start getting into it. In one of the more overtly sexual songs on the tape, the musical elements have been stripped down, likely like the two of them did, and there's far less going on sonically. I think this mimics the new surroundings, as the blasting music and ambience of the party below have become distant and muffled through the bedroom walls. As the song progresses, a heartbeat-like bass comes in amidst Abel's moans that reflect the intense and dialed-in nature of their experience. They're rolling on the floor, high as the sky, and then Abel gets very confessional and has a revelation in the process. In a back-and-forth monologue, he battles the reality of his love life. He wants more of her love, but knows it isn't the real thing. She doesn't want anything real, and neither do most of the girls he hooks up with at his parties. For a moment, this frustrates him. They don't care about him. They just want his drugs and his rising fame. He makes a heat-of-the-moment decision to block out these thoughts as a coping mechanism, avoiding harsh realities that would require action and the end of these temporary highs, and instead embraces the bliss of the night. This quickly turns into the notion of overdosing on this ecstasy, which he relates to drowning. A sudden overflow from the sipping he was just doing to an overwhelming sensation of struggle as he's overpowered by the smoke in the room and as their sex reaches a climax. Possibly in a moment of clarity, he comes to his senses and wants her to give him a real chance at love and hopes their night can convince her. And to close out the song, in the final verse, he refers to this girl as Rudolph, as she gets a red nose from all the lines they're doing, and confesses that it's more likely that she'll overdose before he ever introduces her to his mum, casting doubt on a future together in this lifestyle they're both living. And without changing this, he'll continue to feel this void. But it's in this closing verse that his vocal style has become on the edge of climactic as their loving continues and he doesn't want the moment to end. Before the concluding moans and climaxes finish the last 2 minutes of the song, Abel tells her he wants to go all night to prove the type of love he can give her in the hopes of convincing her to start something real with him. In a continuation from the previous song and night, and in a reflective tone, Abel's coming down from his high and night of ecstasy, regaining full consciousness and control, coming to grips with his actions and infidelity. There's an eerie vibe I can only describe as airy that feels ominous and cold, like walking around the streets in the black of night surrounded by haunting wind and darkness. We can hear All Alone echo in the wind as he wanders the night, thinking of his girlfriend. His drug-centric lifestyle and party romances are fleeting, built on quick fixes and temporary highs, and they keep him away from his partner, potentially out of shame or secrecy. Yet either way, when those flashing lights go away and he's left alone and sober, he knows where he wants to be. The combination of falsettos and repeated hooks play into this somber and contemplative atmosphere that highlights his loneliness and emptiness, crucially stemming from drug-fueled regrets. In the first verse though, we get an insight into Abel's feelings of fame and, importantly, money. He claims, with this money comes problems, and with these problems come solutions, and he uses them. His rising fame and relative wealth aren't all rainbows and sunshine, and drugs have been a comforting vice for him. However, his addiction brings about its own problems. When he's high, he forgets about his exclusivity and is completely overtaken by his lust and desire. But now that his high is over, and so is the party, he wants to come back to his girlfriend. The original version of the song included a Japanese sample from an anime called Fate Stay Night that had to be removed in the streaming remaster. But its intended purpose was most likely to be used as his girlfriend's response to his moment of clarity. It seems like a sensitive issue for her as an ex-addict who Abel most likely met at one of his parties or in the club. She thinks that Abel's cowardly for not confronting his problem like she did, and it hurts seeing him continue letting drugs dictate his life, making her stance very clear. Yet, she stays with him, hoping he'll change. If this is the case, it makes Abel's quest for real love an interesting point because it seems like he has what he's searching for back at home. Perhaps his vices and insecurities have corrupted his relationship and desires beyond repair. Or maybe it's the shame he feels in his actions and infidelity that stop him from truly trying to mend this relationship and the idea of hurting and tainting this good girl with his dark truths, despite wanting to be with her. A personal favourite of mine, Loft music, in both of its parts, carries an atmospheric ambience that supports anything party setting we've grown accustomed to. However, it feels a little more personal and intimate, as if he truly is having a private party with just another girl, or that everyone is blocked out in a similar way to the party and the after party. Either way, Abel exudes a lot of confidence and bravado in this track, akin to that of Glass Table Girls, which generally introduces a common theme to his rapping persona that differs from his more vulnerable and melancholy singing performances, like in Wicked Games for example. Straight off the bat, Abel addresses those who are concerned about his drug use and its long-term effects, which he's unfazed by as he proudly lives in the moment, which we've been able to see throughout a lot of these tracks where he disregards future consequences and lives for those immediate rushes. And there aren't many better immediate rushes for Abel than what he gets from sex and drugs, which, can you believe it, are two big themes here once again. Now, we could talk about and focus on the erotic wordplay, but amid his confidence showing, we see him embracing new revelations and realities that he's coming to grips with, and that's the notion of the next man. As we've heard, Abel's had difficulties finding genuine connection and has been constantly used for what he provides. Not against his will, mind you, he's very down for it in these moments. But an important line is said, and that is he's better than your next man, which foreshadows a future line, but means a couple of things. First of all, it comes from a mixture of insecurity and confidence. 9 tracks in, he's come to the realization that he does get used and that he's just one of many future men. But like we heard at the end of the after party, Abel's adamant on making these girls know that he's the best they can get and should regret not holding on to him. Now, why would this girl's next man want to fight Abel? I think next man refers to the next man on her schedule, possibly a boyfriend she'll go home to, and Abel's saying if he finds out and wants to fight, Abel won't back down. Again, something we've heard in Glass Table Girls. With all of these callbacks I'm making, I think Loft Music is a really well done, culminating track of self-awareness and growth, as ideas and messages of previous songs all collate and merge in this last steamy encounter of the project. Now quickly back to the drugs, because of course he needs to weave it into separate ideas like sex and music. When talking about keys, you would naturally think he's talking about the sweet ivory that's being played throughout the song, and he was for a moment. As his confident rapping persona often alludes to, he's self-assured in his ability to make hits all day long and cook up something beautiful on the piano too. But quickly, when asking if she likes it, I think it becomes about the cocaine that they're taking and the fact that they're going to take it or be off it all day. And just like his melting brain, the combination of cocaine and lust is going to fry her brain too. But this shouldn't be scary because to him, this takes them to a dream world, and who wouldn't want to go to one of those? Let's fast track to the second half of the song though, which really takes the atmospheric ambience to a new level. Moans of oohs and ahs echo as their conversation devolves, or evolves, depending on what you're into, to a drugged blur of ecstasy as the drugs start to kick in. The picture becomes vivid as he asks what she's thinking about, and an exchange of lustful stares, giggles, and excitement take the forefront during this hallucinogenic experience, and they descend into a spiraling haze under the influence of drugs and lust. The mood kind of changes to something a little darker when he says he's been thinking, and then repeats that he knows everything. This is most definitely foreshadowing the next track, but also reiterates his personal breakthrough in relationships, and that she's already thinking of her next man or her partner at home that Abel can relate to. House of Balloons is signposted with the hauntingly beautiful The Knowing, where its delicately echoed keys and distorted crashes tell a dystopian love story built on revenge, lies, and spite. To switch it up, and as this is one of the few songs with a music video on the project, the analysis of this song will largely be in reference to the music video, which is one hell of a watch and was majorly confusing the first 20 times I watched it. But I believe this is true about Abel to this day, and definitely throughout this project. Every single word sung, production element added, and visual in the music video is there on purpose, with a meaning and with the intent of telling a story. So what is the story of The Knowing? In what I would call the prologue, we see 2 individuals in space watching the events of the 1974 ousting of the Ethiopian emperor at the time, Haile Selassie, who was regarded as the Rastafari Messiah and worshipped as God incarnate. His body is brought to a spaceship that was overlooking the events for it to be reprocessed or reincarnated further, but this time as Abel. As the prologue ends and the song begins, we arrive at Ethio X, a futuristic planet that despite its technological advancement is painted in a yellowish hue that overwashes the skyline and immediately suggests that it's a flawed dystopian world. Entering the highest rising building, we see the same woman from earlier, Abel and some other men. The crux of the song is a pair of partners cheating on each other, and in the music video, this knowing is visualized through eyesight and vision. Abel's blurred eyes show that he's blinded from the truth, although at times we will see golden eyes or other motifs which represent being aware and knowing. In my view, this opening scene shows Abel pensively looking out the window as his friend has told him that his partner's been cheating on him, as we can see from the other man's golden eyes. Soon after, we see a blood red visual as Abel's lined up amongst other men with the same blurred eyes, likely representing the rest of the men she's cheating on and keeping in the dark, not knowing the truth. To definitively find the truth, Abel makes a deal with an alien being in this monolithic sand dune that grants him omniscience and knowledge of her infidelity as he catches her in the act in this golden paradise with a demonic figure. I do believe there's religious undertone and purpose to a lot of the visuals as decided by Abel and the director, bringing light to Ethiopian history and Rastafari tradition, which Abel is clearly proud of. Although I won't be going into it too much in this video. If you are interested, however, there's a great short article I'll leave in the description if you want to learn about that. Continuing on though, we arrive back in Abel's tower and receive some confirmation that he's the ruler or emperor of this place, and although his eyes are still blurred for these scenes, he reveals the truth of her infidelity, which is cause for execution. I think the different versions of this woman represent her different lies and identities that she used to seduce and juggle all these different men. Crucially, her true self, the first version, is missing, and upon learning of this execution is seething with rage and wants revenge. Soon after, Abel addresses the nation, and despite his renewed vision, he dons a blindfold to remain blinded. I think he's having difficulty coming to terms with this truth and doesn't want to believe it, nor was he happy executing her. It was just the right thing to do. Looking back at the woman, we get some insight into her thinking. Fury and anger at Abel's actions caused the schism of Ethio that divides men and women into different worlds. This doesn't sate the woman's fury, and she designs a device that will remove Abel's heart. Each part of the device is labeled with the lyrics of this verse, and with its construction, the women head to male Ethio and seek revenge. Abel, blinded, moans with agony, bubbles burst from his hand, which based on the symbolism of bubbles, yes, I had to Google the symbolism of bubbles for this music video, could be him finally coming to terms with the reality of what's happened. That is, him accepting impermanence, coming to grips with the nature of relationships and that some are temporary and fleeting. And if that isn't it, I couldn't tell you. He's killed in his sleep by these women and his heart is ripped from his chest and sucked into this machine. Interestingly, his heart is stored in the part of the device that was labeled "It's hard to keep me up." This could mean it's hard for him to keep his faith in love and believe in it after continual heartbreak. Lucky for Abel, the same aliens from earlier provide him with a new heart. It's an alien heart, a foreign heart, and ultimately something unique to Abel that makes it impossible for him to relate to anyone else. In other words, this heartbreak has turned his heart rotten, alien, and generally abnormal. This sort of experience and lifestyle has tainted him and his heart. The woman, now with Abel's real or original heart, tries to break it with a sledgehammer and finds that no matter what she tries, she can't break it. In fact, with each attempt to break his heart, she makes it grow, and in a sign of defeat, she throws it to the lions to devour. With each heartbreak, Abel grows more resolve and more personal strength, but at the cost of his faith in love and meaningful connection. For quick historical context, lions are an important symbol in Ethiopian history, especially the Lion of Judah, which serves as the title of the line of emperors Haile Selassie comes from. Recognizing the purity and holiness of this heart, they refuse to eat it. In an act of retaliation for the invasion of male Ethio, they invade female Ethio, reflecting the petty battle of the sexes in love and romance. The woman's roars of rage tear down her palace and open up the floor beneath her. Abel arrives at her palace, reclaims his reinforced heart, and puts it back in his chest. The woman begins falling into the depths. Abel watches on sorrowfully and in that moment embodies Selassie, reaching down and trying to save her. She begins slipping and ultimately Abel must let her go to save himself. Well, so that music video was pretty crazy, and I know I skipped over some details, but to avoid this analysis being 4 hours long, I thought it was for the best. As always, these videos and interpretations are just what I believe and have taken away from these songs, and I implore you to share your takes in the comments. I'm always keen to hear them. But this brings our tour of the House of Balloons to a close. It was quite the journey and should always remain a key landmark in the history of The Weeknd. It will always be my favourite Weeknd project, and hopefully you can go back and listen to it with maybe a new perspective and another level of appreciation.